Welcome back to the channel, people. Welcome back to another live stream. Welcome back to the channel, people. Welcome back to another live stream. Welcome back to the channel, people. Welcome back to another live stream. Bitcoin. Bitcoin is at $69,000. Bitcoin trading at $69,000. The equity market, the altcoin market, it's all green today. I got a lot of big movers in the last few hours. I have some big movers. I think Rivian is probably the top performer on my watch list. It's currently up about 26, almost 27%. And then in the cryptocurrency market, I have Zcash that's up 14%. And I have, what else do I have? I think Zcash is the biggest gainer in the cryptocurrency market for me. And then you have, the Bitcoin proxies. You have Coinbase is up about $23, which is 16%. And then you have MicroStrategy it's up almost $10, which is 8%. And then you have, what else do you have? Like, what are some of the big movers? You have Iran is up about 6%, which is, $2.50. But anyways, I think this is going to be one of my most important live streams. Sounds like I say this all the time. But this one is definitely going to be one of my most important live streams because I'm going to share with you, some mistakes that you need to avoid in 2026. If you don't want to blow up your account, this is a live stream that you absolutely, I extremely recommend you stick around, watch the live stream. I'm going to share with you some mistakes that you need to avoid in 2026. And one of the reasons I'm actually, going to share this with you is because today is a perfect day for this live stream. Today, price action is a perfect day, man. Because if you don't know technical analysis, if you're new to the market, if you are still looking for some guidance, days like today are very tricky, very, very tricky. And, you can find yourself in a place where you make one of the worst decisions that can cost you thousands, tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I'm going to share with you guys, exactly how to avoid the trap. I'm going to share with you guys exactly what to do. And, if you have any questions, of course, this is why I'm here. So if you have any questions, just ask. First and foremost, we do have some time today. So this is going to be a long live stream. Hopefully you guys don't mind. Probably, 2 hours probably. Unless I'm interrupted, by the kids in the house or something else outside of my control. Or if no one is watching, I might as well just, probably stop. This is going to be a long live stream. I think value is going to be provided. We are going to look at Bitcoin. We are going to look at the altcoin market. But most importantly, I want to share with you guys exactly what to avoid in 2026. And today's price action is this is a perfect time right here. So what I'm going to ask you is, to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, guys. And I do want to say thank you. I think we just hit 265. If it's not 267 subscribers. We are on a mission to get to 1,000 subscribers as quickly as we can. So the only way to get to 1,000 is by you people who have not subscribed. You got to hit that subscribe button. And if you're watching the stream hit the like button. The algorithm, the YouTube algorithm is something that I talk about all the time. But it's really important, guys. If you don't like, if you don't hit the like, if you're not sharing the content, if you are not subscribing, you know, there's no way I'm able to keep up with some of your favorite influencers. There's no way I get to 1,000 subscribers. I think there's value in my content, and I believe, more people should see what goes on around here. Anyways, so I'm not going to waste your time, but once again, look, I'm not in a rush, so we're going to take our time. I want to jump straight to it, guys, and talk about the cryptocurrency market, some of the mistakes that you need to avoid in 2026. And if you guys have any questions, if you have some stuff that you would like me to analyze, just, feel free to put them in the chat. All right. Let's go. So, let's talk about the mistakes that you need to avoid in 2026. In 2026, we are in a bear market. And what that means is less is more. Doing less is exactly what you need to do to avoid the trap. If you want to ruin yourself financially, then ignore everything that is going to be talked about in this video. But in 2026, the cryptocurrency market is more likely to experience a severe bear market. We are already experiencing it right now, from $126,000 to $60,000. It has been a brutal bear market. And so far, I don't see a sign that this bear market is coming to an end anytime soon. I don't see a sign that we are going to start going up. And because of that, and throughout the bear market, you are going to encounter what we call bear market rallies. There's going to be times when the market is green. There's going to be times when the market is moving up, where the price of Bitcoin goes from $60,000 to $69,000. Nothing goes down in a straight line. The market does not go down in a straight line. If the bottom of this bear market is going to be $40,000, BTC is not going to go from $126,000 to $40,000. Right? That is just not going to happen. That is not realistic. There's going to be times when the market is green, just like today. And when the market is green, you need to make sure that you avoid changing your opinion on the market. You need to make sure that you avoid thinking that the market is reversing back to the upside. Because this is exactly what a green day is going to have you thinking about. All right? A green day like today, where the price is at $69,000, you are going to start thinking about, maybe the bottom is already in. Maybe, I need to hurry up and build a position, because if I don't, price is going to get away from me. We have talked about structure. We have talked about the structure of the market. In a market, there's only three ways a market is going to trend in. You're going to have a market that is trending up, and that is a market that gives you higher highs and higher lows. And then you are going to have a market that's moving sideways. This is a market that has well-established structures that are, very respected, where you have a very clear resistance and support. And then you are going to have a market that is trending down. In every single one of this market, you can make money. You can make profits. When a market is moving like this, all right, every single pullback is an opportunity to buy the dip. And this is why during a bull market, probably The most famous phrase is buy the dip whenever there's a pullback. The reason this works is because the market is trending up, and every single pullback is going to short live. All right, pullbacks are temporary. Pullbacks, they don't really last. So even if you buy if you buy the dip at a much higher price, eventually, if you are patient, the market will put in the lows and price will go back up. Price will break above your average, and price will continue up. When you have a market that is trending sideways, the way to make money from a market like this, you wait for price to come back to retest the very same support. So in this case, that will be right here. And then you want to take profits when the market comes towards the very same resistance. You repeat the same process over and over and over again. When you have a market that is trending like this, in a downtrend where you have lower highs and lower lows, what you do is you don't buy the dip. Instead, you wait for these pullbacks. You sell the rise, or you sell the relief rally, and you take profits, somewhere down here. And then you repeat exactly the same process over and over and over again. And if you don't want to short the market, you simply just stay on the sideline until this is over. So going back to Bitcoin, what you have to ask yourself is, what type of a market do we have? Do we have a market that is trending up with very clear higher highs and higher lows? Do we have a market that is trending sideways with clear support and resistance, and we continue in the same range? Or do we have a market that is trending down with very clear lower lows and lower highs? Well, if you look at the weekly, we clearly have a Bitcoin that is doing this right here, guys. We don't have a Bitcoin that's doing this, and we damn sure don't have a Bitcoin that is doing this. All right? So what that means is, since we have a Bitcoin that is doing this right here, we are looking at a bearish market. And until this is over, we do not buy the dip. We don't dollar cost average. All right. You do not DCA in a market that is in a downtrend. And the reason you don't DCA in a market that's in a downtrend is because, once again, going back to the famous words, the dip is going to keep on dipping. So what exactly are you accumulating if the dip is going to keep on dipping? In a bear market, the dips is not going to keep on dipping. In a bull market with an uptrend, higher highs and higher lows, the dip is not going to keep on dipping, and that is because the market is trending up. So what you need to avoid, all right, what you must avoid is getting caught up when the market is having a relief rally. So remember, we said nothing goes down in a straight line. So when the market is having this relief rally right here, you must avoid the temptation of changing your outlook on the market, because this is not the beginning of something that looks like this. It could be, but until this is proven, until you have more data, this is nothing but a continuation of this overall downtrend. So you must avoid, all right, you must avoid becoming bullish in a market that is in a very clear downtrend. That is the first thing that you need to avoid, guys. If you don't want to ruin yourself financially in 2026, you need to avoid days like today, where the price of Bitcoin is up, where the market is green during a downtrend. Because today being green, it doesn't really change anything. What you have right now is exactly what we call a bear market relief rally, or a day cap bounce. This is exactly what we experienced when Bitcoin traded from 80,000 to $97,000. You people who watch my live streams, you may remember this. When this was happening, I use exactly this, I use exactly the very same words. That guys, this is not the beginning of a new all-time highs. This is a relief rally, and we are more likely are going to get rejected at the 21 weekly moving average. You guys, you know we said that. And if you don't believe me, then all I need you to do is just go all the way back to about a month ago and listen to some of my updates on Bitcoin when Bitcoin was pushing towards $96,000. I told you guys this is a relief rally. And very soon we are going to get a crash. All right. Very soon we are going to get a crash. Look, the update is right here, guys. My new price prediction will shock you. When Bitcoin was in an uptrend, I told you, yes, we are bullish right now. But guess what? All right. Guess what? You have a Bitcoin that is going to crash right after. So you need to avoid the traps. And the traps are days like today where the price is moving up, the market is green. Because if you don't know what you're doing, and I'm saying this because I was once there, before when I started looking at markets, days like today, guys, I'm telling you, man, I'm dollar cost averaging. I'm trying to accumulate as much as I can because I'm thinking the market is about to get away from it. These green candles are extremely attempted. When you go to the daily and you see a green candle like this, and you start thinking about, oh my gosh, BTC is about to run. I need to jump into a position before it's too late. Like that is what you start thinking about. So I am telling you right now that you need to avoid these traps in 2026. You must avoid bear market rallies. Don't allow bear market rallies, relief rallies, to have you believe that the overall downtrend is over. When you go to the weekly and you go to the monthly, this is not a bullish market. And if anyone say this is a bullish market, then I highly suggest that maybe instead of taking the advice, wait a couple more months and see where the price of Bitcoin is trading. Not only where we are trading, how we are actually trading, because that is going to be important. Mistakes number 2. Let's talk about something else that you need to avoid. Mistakes number 2 is, if any of you guys is looking at charts, and if you don't, that is perfectly fine. But the second mistake that you need to avoid, guys, is a lot of influencers. You have to be extremely selective because there's a lot of nonsense out there. I'm not saying that I'm the only person that you should listen to, but I do think I'm one of the good ones. I'm not saying that I'm always right or that I am going to be right most of the time, but what I try to do is have integrity, and what I try to do is present what I'm actually seeing in the chart. And I'll show you guys a couple of examples. If you simply look up Bitcoin, all right? If you simply look up Bitcoin, or, I don't know, any other, crypto token, you are going to see that, a lot of these guys, they're not really being honest in their analysis on the market. They're not really being honest. And they tend to only lean towards the bullish side. And it's perfectly fine. If you have a 20, 30, 50-year outlook, and you don't, and you see every single crash as a huge opportunity for people to buy Bitcoin, I get it. All right. In a in a long enough time, I'm talking about 10, 20, 50 years, jumping in at $69,000, it's extremely undervalued. I think Bitcoin is undervalued. If we are thinking about, BTC as digital gold, and if we think Bitcoin is going to one day have the same market cap as gold, then Bitcoin is definitely undervalued. But in terms of 6, 12 months from now, like, where is the price of Bitcoin most likely to trade? Is it higher than $69,000? Is it lower than $69,000? I think it's lower than 69,000. And if anybody says, you know, should buy at 69,000 because the bottom is in, $60,000 was the bottom, then I think they are being, I don't think they're being fair. And especially if they're looking at the charts. If they are looking at other matrix, fundamentals, other stuff, whatever people utilize to, to determine if Bitcoin is at a fair value, undervalued from a buying perspective. But in terms of like technical analysis, like, this is a Bitcoin that is in a long-term downtrend. And of course, guys, Bitcoin is the all indicator when it comes to the cryptocurrency market. So if we think Bitcoin, is going down, if we think Bitcoin is going lower than $60,000, then what that means is every single altcoin is most likely to follow suit. So I think you have to be extremely selective. And if you have influencers who you are listening to, make sure you are listening to someone who's looking at the market from both sides. Someone who's looking at the market from the bearish side and, the bullish side. Number 3, and here we're going back to, you want to follow the trend instead of just blindly reacting to every time the price is up. I highly recommend, if there's any time frame that you spend a lot of your time looking at, it should be the weekly and the monthly. When you watch my streams, every one of my live streams, most of my analysis is taking place on the weekly and monthly. And the reason I do this is because this is where you get the best entries, and this is where you get the best performance. So I'll give you guys an example. If I'm looking at the monthly time frame, guys, in the last bear market, I could have either bought Bitcoin, even without using any indicator. I could have bought Bitcoin somewhere between $23,000 and $31,000. Like, that would have been my entry right here. And I would have exited Bitcoin somewhere around here, guys, somewhere around $105,000 to $90,000. So you can clearly see, if you are on, the monthly, you are going to be able to have a very good entry and a very good exit. And performance-wise, you are going to do very well compared to, looking at lower times. And not only that, the chart and the performance is much more cleaner, all right, in terms of there's less movements, there's less pullbacks, so you get more of a straight line. If you look at the performance right here on the monthly, guys, even if you look at the previous bull market, it's more of a straight line compared to if you go to the daily, if you go to the lower time, there's a lot of happening. So if I come to the daily right here, look, you can clearly see there's a lot of movements right here. So in order to avoid, the complications of all of this, in order to avoid all of this noise, you got to zoom out and go to the bigger time frames. So if I'm looking at BTC on the monthly, I know that until I see the monthly start to look like it's about to go back up, my job is to simply just stay on the sideline until, I'm basically proven otherwise. Because jumping in right here, what if, and I'm saying what if because even though I'm bearish, this is a game of probabilities. There is no certainty in any of this. What if we're going down to $40,000? All right. Wouldn't you rather wait until 40,000? Wouldn't you rather wait until the crash is actually over and until you see a reversal to the upside? So as you look at this market, instead of spending a lot of time on the daily, instead of spending a lot of time on the lower time, because I've seen a lot of these influencers, most of the analysis is taking place on the 15 minutes. And this is why, many of them are constantly flip-flopping, because without looking at the weekly and the monthly, they're missing the bigger picture. So you got to make sure you're looking at the right time frames. The market is green today, but you can clearly see on the monthly, guys, it doesn't even reflect in the monthly candle. All right. Despite going from 60,000 to 69 to $70,000, the monthly candle is still red. We are still below our most recent support that were broken. We recently broke below $74,000. Price of Bitcoin is below $74,000. So on the monthly, guys, what's taking place on the lower time, it's not even showing up. And this is why, right? This is why, in order to get it right, in order to avoid financial ruins in 2026, you got to zoom out and you got to look at, higher time frames. So I think that was, number 3, right? On what to avoid to do, to not blow up your account in 2026. We can go on and on in regards to Bitcoin, but I do want to take some time and jump into the altcoin market very soon. But in terms of technical analysis, let's do proper TA right here. What I've said to you guys recently was that you are going to see a drop all the way down into the low $60,000 range. And what I say to you was, I believe the top was already in. Well, our first pullback brought us to exactly a $65,000. That is the mid 60s. It's not the low, but I do think we're heading into the low 60s. Just got to give it some time. Let me fix this. Just got to give it some time to go back to my yellow lines. So right now I'm going to put a support right here. I'm going to say this is a well-established mid-range. And I'm also going to put another support. Look, I can put one right here, 62,000, or I'm just going to put one right here at $60,000. And then I'm also going to put, look, this is also an area of interest. I think from 79 all the way down to 72. This is definitely an area of interest. But I'm just going to stick with my 72,000. But anyways, what I say to you guys was that on the daily, what we are more likely to see is a reset in the daily RSI. So daily RSI was extremely oversold. We saw one of the lowest daily RSI since the COVID drop. So my belief is that daily RSI is going to reset, probably come back into the 50s. I believe that on the daily, these EMAs are going to come closer to the price. So if I'm looking at my 21 and my 50 moving average, I think as we continue to go sideways, we are going to, catch up to these moving averages right here. The 21 moving average is already around $75,000, but the 50 is right now around 82,000. So I think we are going to be here for at least 2 to 3 weeks. And that is a Bitcoin that trades, between 92,000, maybe we go just a little higher, 93, 94, not 90, $72,000. Maybe we go to 74. I don't know if we'll go to 75, but probably. And then we'll come back to 65, probably lower to 62. And then we probably go up again. Look, basically, I see a BTC that ranges for the next 2 to 3 weeks. That is kind of my analysis. So you are going to have plenty more days like this. You're going to have plenty more days like today. And I have been trying to compare what we are experiencing right now to, if you think about back here, all right, let me bring some RSIs. If you think about back here, chat, let me actually do this. I'm talking about right here. So if I put a vertical line right here, and then I put another one right here, all right, I'm going to bring up the RSI. So notice how RSI was extremely oversold, and then we reset it, all right, rose all the way up back to the 50 line, but this was not bullish, and we were never bullish. And also at the time, price was allowed to, EMAs were allowed to catch up to the price because these are lagging indicators. They give you the average of, the last many trading days. In this case, this was a 21 EMA. This is the 50, of course. So you see price did touch the 21 moving average. So I think this is exactly what we're about to experience. And what that means to you is, going back to, you need to avoid these traps right here because they are part of the bear market. All right. So while these moving averages are getting closer to the price, we are going to be going sideways. All right. And then by the time RSI is around, I'm going to tell you this. Once the RSI is around the 50 line, once the EMAs on the daily are, probably finally touching the price, I think that is going to mark the top of, I don't want to say the top, the end of the consolidation, and we are going to see, a move into the low $50,000 range. You just have to be patient. Like, you really, really got to be patient. If you're not patient, it's going to be a tougher 2026 for you because this is a long, long, long waiting. Right? And the reason this is a long, long waiting is because just go to the monthly, guys. Like, this thing looks really, really bad. So, yeah, look, this is my assessment on Bitcoin, and I wouldn't change it. I don't have a reason to change it, to be honest with you guys. If there's a reason for me to have, a different outlook, different thoughts, I'm going to have to wait for some data. I really, really going to have to wait for some data. But as far as, where do I stand? I mean, I am incredibly bearish, like incredibly bearish, guys. And remember, these moving averages are also momentum indicators. So the further they go away from each other, the stronger the bears. So the bears are full in control of this market. And then when you go to the weekly, guys, we talked about the death cross, where the 21 weekly moving average crossed below the 50. All right, and this is exactly what you tend to get in a bear market. And you can see on the weekly, the gap is wide. Look, chat, I'm not making this up. Like, it is right in front of you. The gap is widening up. The wider the gap, the bigger the drop. So it is, it's tough, man. I'll tell you that's tough. So the other part is, we're not there yet, but, clearly the weekly is going to have to give us, some sort of a weekly rally. I don't think it's right now. And the reason is because, you look at a 21 weekly moving average, it is currently around 90,000. And this is why, guys, when you think about a bear market, it's not just about the price. It's also about time. Time is important because price is one thing. You also got to consider time, man. By the time we get into the next bull market, all these moving averages, like all of these things are going to complete reset. So 21 weekly It's potentially going to be in the $60,000 range, maybe in the 50s. Yo, it's currently at 90,000. By the time we get into the 60s or into the 50s, you are talking about late 2026. You are talking about late 2026. What about the monthly, guys? Look, I'm looking at the monthly chart right here. The last bear market, we didn't break above the 21 monthly until $28,000. We didn't break above the 50 monthly moving average until 24,000. Remember, the bull market top was at $69,000. We go through the bear market. We don't break above the 50 monthly moving average until 24,000. We don't break above the 21 monthly moving average until $28,000. So just think about that for a second, guys. Like, honestly, think about that for a second. I think, all right, the 21 and the 50 monthly are also going to pull back. And by the time we break above them, the 50 could potentially be around $50,000. The 21 monthly could potentially be around, maybe 60,000. If I'm looking at the 21 monthly, it's currently around 84,000. Like, do you know how long it's going to take to go from 84,000 to like in the $60,000 range? The 50 monthly is at 65,000. Do you know how long this is going to take? To go from 65,000 into like the $50,000 range. Like, this is gonna take months, man. And also remember, we didn't break above the 50 monthly until March of 2023. All right, chat. We lost the 50 in June of 2022. We didn't break above it until March of 2023. We didn't break above the 21 monthly also until March of 2023. So this is why, you have to make sure whatever you do, it's not something that's extremely crazy where if you dollar cost average into this market, or if you do anything prematurely, you can, just financially destroy yourself, basically. And the wrong move, not only are you going to be a bag holder, I mean, just think about the damage going into the next bull market. Instead of buying the lows, you buy somewhere in between, somewhere halfway through probably the all-time highs of the next bull market. So, yeah, be careful out there. So look, this is Bitcoin. I don't know if I'm missing anything in regards to BTC. If I do remember, we will get back to it. I want to jump into the altcoin market because this is where it gets spicy. Like, it's not even fair, guys. Like, when it comes to altcoins, it's not even fair. I want to give you guys an update on Coinbase. Coinbase had, I don't know about their earnings. I gotta have to look it up. Was it a good earning? Was it bad? I'm assuming it was probably good. Price, of course, is up about $25. But let me be clear. Coinbase is in a long-term downtrend. And I really think Coinbase is going below $140. I really believe Coinbase is probably a $70 stock, sometimes in 2026. Chat, remember, price going up like this is meaningless. I guess I will have to say this, though. The good thing right now is we retested this $140 support on the weekly. Instead of breaking it, we are having a weekly close above it. Like, this is very positive. I'm going to have to be honest. But for me, if I'm looking at these higher time frames, if I'm looking at the monthly, if I'm looking at the weekly, I think the damage has already been done. And I mean, you are looking at a Coinbase that is basically in a dire need of a bear market rally, and I think this is exactly what we're getting. If you look at the daily performance, we've gone from basically $400 straight down to $140. Our last recent lower high on the daily is 264. Surely, we need some sort of a pullback before the next major dump, below 140. So I would say this to anyone: if you're looking at Coinbase, don't do anything. All right, this is not a bullish Coinbase right here. Could it flip bullish? Absolutely yes, but we'll have to talk about what that looks like in terms of like a golden cross, bearish cross, death cross. Chat, just take a look at this right here. All right, look at this 21 weekly, slid below the 50. Look at the MACD momentum, man. Like, if you think this is bullish, chat, if you think this is bullish right here, honestly, I don't know what to tell you. You go to the monthly. If you think this is bullish, like, I don't know what to tell you. Don't let the price mislead you. All right. Do not allow the price to mislead, and have you make the wrong decision. Like, even on the lower time, look, let's just look at the lower time right here, guys. Coinbase already coming up against, like, on the 1 hour, this is a major resistance right here. All right. Do we get above 167? Like, that is the big ask right now. All right. This is a big ask right here. Do we get above 167? All right. If we go to the 4-hour time frame, we already are retesting, the 21 moving average. All right. Like, it's just not looking good. All right. I don't think Coinbase goes above. I don't think we go above like 180, or like, I don't see price above $200 if I'm really going to be honest with you guys. Now, I am going to say this. Well, maybe let me not say that. I am going to say this though. Coinbase is due for a weekly bounce. Like, we haven't seen a weekly bounce in a very, very long time. I don't know if you guys think this is a weekly bounce right here, but I don't think so. I think we need something bigger, man. Do we get one? No, probably yes, probably not. But I'm looking at this weekly. I do think we are due for a very big move to the upside. But I'm not talking about a move that kicks off the next bull market. I'm only talking about a day cap bounce and then we continue lower. If I'm on the daily, look, I'm having a hard time see the price of Coinbase above my 50 daily moving average, which is around $220. I'm really having a hard time see that play out. Our last lower high is around $260. Yeah, I don't think Coinbase goes anywhere around $260. It will be Look, it is going to be interesting to see how Coinbase trades, over the next couple of weeks. But if I have to kind of make a prediction, if I have to speculate, I don't think it's anywhere in the $200 range. I think we lose 140 and we start pushing towards $100. Now, once we do get around $100, I think it is only right, especially once you get to like $111. I think it's only right, we get a massive weekly relief rally before we roll over into the $70 range. That is kind of my outlook on Coinbase. I wouldn't let myself be misled by today's price action. This $25 jump, I think this is an amazing opportunity for you to take your profits and run as far away as you can. Like, go somewhere else with that $25. Go somewhere else with those profits, because the charts, man. I mean, look at the charts. And look at the chart of Coinbase. Chat, a quick reminder. Hit the subscribe button. Hit that like. I apologize. I wasn't looking at the comments, but let's get it. Let me see. I could see a potential good entry for new short around $80,000. Who knows if we get there? Yeah, look, any move to the upside, any move to the upside, it's an amazing short opportunity. Like you are looking at some gorgeous opportunities. Let me get rid of these EMAs right here. Once again, hit the like button, hit the subscribe. Also here, only looking for a good short. $79,000 should be really high. Someone who makes money from the market, not from selling some premium group. I appreciate your content. Appreciate you guys, man. Definitely appreciate you guys. I wouldn't live stream if it wasn't for you. Missed all last week. Managed to catch up once I make some titty dollar. I joined your group. I planned in 2022, but Jasmine have wrecked me. LOL. Wish I listened to you back then. I mean, look, it's okay, man. It's okay, guys. Look, I'm glad you brought up Jasmine because there's a dude out there. I mean, I don't know if he's a dude or if he's a female. I gotta be careful nowadays. But there's a guy who has been, very mad at me because I guess he bought Jasmine. And when I was constantly making Jasmine content and I was predicting 30 cents, he probably thought Jasmine was really going to 30 cents. And when the trend was broken, he just stayed in the position and, he's a bag holder right now. Now, he probably have lost a lot of money, but I'm like, hey, man, the same way I analyzed when Jasmine was bullish, it's exactly the same way I analyzed it when he turned it bearish. I don't know how many of you guys, you were definitely here when I said at the time that, guys, yes, I'm bullish on Jasmine. And yes, my expectation is for Jasmine to go to these targets. But at the same time, that is just the opinion that I have. The number one thing that you don't want to avoid is the trend of the market. Look, I became bearish on Jasmine right here, guys. Once we lost 15, and look, guys, I made probably, all right, I don't want to say hundreds, but I made a lot of videos on why I was bearish on Jasmine the moment we lost this level right here. Throughout this entire move, all right, I was extremely bullish on Jasmine, guys. All right, and the reason I was bullish was because the trend was up. All right, right here, look, I had no idea this was going to be the top of the move. I thought price was going to continue, during this pullback right here. Remember, this was late 2024. So if we are talking about a 3-year bull market, going into 2025, like this was a perfect setup. As long as the price of Jasmine remained above this 15, 0.015, that was a major support level. The moment that was broken, I was out of my position. So the same way, I constantly show Jasmine on the way up. It's exactly the same way, guys. The moment we lost this support right here, it's exactly the same way I was pushing. I think I did, 7 videos a week. I think I did live streams every single day talking about how bearish this was. And even throughout this move right here, I was never bullish on Jasmine. The only way I was going to turn bullish was if the price, if Jasmine was going to reestablish, a bullish platform. So you have to be careful. And what I learned from that experience is I'm never going to do, bull market price targets that are ridiculous because, the way I look at it now, there's definitely a responsibility, from my part because, not everyone is going to follow the structure of the market. For some people, if you say, X and YZ project is going to 30x, that's all they get from it. They only look at that 30x. They don't think about other factors. They don't think about if the structure is not right. You're looking at the same XY, the same project losing 50, 80, and even 100% of its value. So, yeah, I'm no longer doing, this is going to 10, 20, 30x on, specific projects. But in a bear market, I am going to give you levels. In a bear market, I'm going to give you levels. And what you do with that, it is 100% up to you. Anyways, let's get into altcoins. I want to analyze this altcoin market because I don't want any of you guys to get caught up in, today's price action. So we are going to let's start with Zcash. And if you guys, most of the altcoins that I analyzed are the ones that I have on my watch list. So if you guys are not interested in any of my altcoins, please put the ones that you are interested in the chart so I can look at them. I promise you, I have enough time to look at each one of your altcoin. But let's start with Zcash, okay? So none of these altcoins, regardless of what's going on today, none of these altcoins are long-term bullish. If you look at Zcash on the monthly, this is a clean monthly pullback. And my expectation on Zcash is for the price to continue all the way down to these levels right here. I think we're coming all the way down in this range. And the range I'm talking about, it is basically from around $35 up to $80. This is where I see the price of Zcash sometimes in 2026. It is going to take time. When you go to the weekly, all right, what do we have right here? We have a top, $749, and then we have a weekly lower high right here, guys. So the only way for Zcash to be bullish again long term, the bare minimum price will have to get above $564. I don't think this is happening anytime soon. So when you go down to the daily, all right, this is a really, really nice bounce. Ever since this crash from around 564, all right, all the way down to 180. Remember, I predicted 180 when price was still in the $400 range. Ever since this crash, guys, we have seen this over and over again. What I want you guys to see is that this is not something that we haven't seen already. Yo, chat, this move right here is exactly this move right here. It is also exactly this move right here. So those that got caught up right here, all right, those that thought the Zcash was bullish because of this move, they learned their lesson. Because if they bought without a stop loss, you are looking at people who are down about 36%. And at one point, they were down 56%. And I promise you, right, and I'm very confident. Look, there's no certainty in this, but I'm very confident with this. Zcash is not going back in the $400 range. I promise you that, guys. Not anytime soon. Not in 2026. I think this is over with. And also, those that got caught up in here thinking that definitely after the failure of this pump, this was the real one. Yeah, they also got caught up because this is now a position that is currently down a good 26%. All right. At one point, they were down a good 50%. So this is what I think is most likely to play out with Zcash. What you are probably going to get from Zcash is this right here, chat. We have already lost the 200 daily moving average. And I'm going to be very honest with you guys. You do not want to touch anything that is below their 200 daily. So anyways, I think what you are going to see is a bearish consolidation, all right, below the 200, you might get something that looks like a bear flag. I mean, it's too early right now, so it's kind of hard to see what structure is developing. Or you might get some sort of other, bearish pattern. Like, I don't see price. Chat, I don't see price. Probably, right? Maybe we do it, but I don't see price above the 200 daily. So 200 daily right now is around 298. Let's call it $300. Like, I don't see the price of Zcash above $300. I think we put in a top somewhere around here. I don't know if we consolidate or if we just gonna come back, take out 185. And I think we're going all the way down towards. I think we're coming all the way down towards. This is crazy, man. Towards like $92. Chat, I think we're coming all the way down towards towards 92. Somewhere around, like, this is like, it's actually 83. Look, let's just go with $80 all the way up to, I'm looking at these levels, all the way up to $100. So once we do get here, then I do think we are going to get another weekly relief rally. So something very similar to this move right here, guys. All right, see this move from $300 to $560. We may get something similar to that if we go from like this $80, $100, probably all the way up to like, maybe like $230. This is a 150% move. All right, so that wouldn't surprise me. If you go back to the last bear market, you get basically exactly the same stuff. 2021 top right here. This is a 2022 bear market. This is the first bear market rally from $84 to $217. And then we get a crash all the way down here. Then we go from 49 all the way up to 84. So these are massive rallies right here, guys. Like, this is a 70% move. And then the rest of the bear market is just, it's a disaster, basically. So Zcash, I don't want any of you guys to get caught up in this. But, if you're not careful, then you know exactly what's going to happen to your portfolio. All right. It's not only Zcash, though. We talk about XRP. Look at XRP right here, guys. I mean, this one is even worse, to be honest. XRP on the daily, not even doing anything. Definitely lack of buyers. If I'm looking at the momentum indicators, like, this is bad. Then you look at the RSI. Once again, I think RSI resets, back into the 50s. And then this will allow us to dump again, sometimes in the next couple of weeks. And then you look at XLM, exactly the same stuff, guys. Reset RSI, reset some of these indicators. So RSI probably rise back into the 50s. And then we dump straight after that. You look at the MACD right here. One thing that I continue to tell you guys is this. Do not get tricked with a buy signal on the MACD when the MACD is down here. This is an extremely bearish territory. When you get this is not bullish, guys. If you want to get a bullish MACD signal, make sure the MACD is above the 0 line. Anything down here is just a waste of your time. I mean, think about this one right here. For November 22nd, all right, of last year, let's see if price was actually bullish. So November 22nd, that would be, this is November 21st, guys. Look at how the price goes up. Remember the MACD that gave you that buy signal? This is the buy signal right here. I want you guys to take a look at the performance, right? You get a buy signal right here. MACD is rising. But look at the price, all right? Price is basically just going sideways. So this is exactly what I'm telling you guys. Bitcoin and the entire cryptocurrency market are going to do exactly this BS right here. And if you're not careful, you are going to end up with, look at the crash after. All right, you go from right here all the way down to 13 cents. This is almost a 40% dump. All right. Yes, you had this little move right here, but what is this? All right. Unless you're day trading, and you guys know I don't day trade. Unless you're day trading, like you got a big haircut right here. So none of these stuff look good. We're not hating. We're just looking at the market realistically. Like we are just, we are very honest people. It doesn't mean we are going to be right, but we are trying to make sure that we minimize mistakes and don't put you guys in positions where you are bag holders for, who knows how long this is going to last. And if this is our dot-com bubble, like if this is a cleanup, like if we are actually cleaning up this industry, this could go on for years. A lot of these altcoins, chat, 33 million projects, 33 million cryptocurrency tokens. Look, the number continues to go up every single day. So if this is a complete reset, like who knows if if your altcoin is going to survive? Look at Cardano, man. All right, Cardano, like one of the worst, like this is one of the worst looking charts in this whole market. Cardano is losing around. Look, it's losing its 27. Let me go to the monthly actually. Look at the support Cardano is losing, guys. You lose this and you lose 21. You're looking at a project that goes all the way down to around 3 cents. Like this is how bad this is. And this is why, when I look at these charts, like honestly, when people say dollar cost average, RSI is extremely oversold, this and that, these other metrics, yeah, look at the freaking charts. All right, look at the charts. Yeah, if I'm looking at this monthly of Cardano, like why would you even be a buyer? The risk is not worth it. Okay, if you get in and this happens to be the bottom, all right, perfectly fine. You've done a great job. But guess what? All right, shortly after that, I'm going to join you. My entry, might not be as low as you, but around 40 cents, I'm going to have it set up. All right, and who knows if I actually won't outperform you. Chat, give me a second. as I was saying, all right, I'm back right here, guys. So, anyways, so what you're trying to avoid is this right here, trying to avoid a potential 70%. And remember, chat, just because your entry is lower, it doesn't mean that you are actually going to outperform the person that got in after you. All right. If someone gets in after you, doesn't mean because you got in lower, you're going to outperform them. All right. Look, you could have bought here and sold here, but the person that jumped in around here and sold here, all right, or somewhere around here, outperforms you. So if this is your entry, this is a 10x. If this is my entry, all right, look at this. This is a 12x right here. So, entry doesn't mean you outperform those that come after you. But anyways, you got to be careful out there, guys. You got to be careful. Let's take a look at XMR. XMR. Actually, I think I have this on my chart. Reminder, hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. So XMR, monthly pullback. I'm so mad with this one because, the chart was so bullish. I think the overall weakness of the market just destroyed, this uptrend. But anyways, yeah, this is a pullback right here on the monthly. If you go to the weekly, we have started breaking some structures, so I don't like it right now. If I'm looking at this weekly, going below 361, like that broke this uptrend. So if I'm looking at this, I am going to say it is due for a really nice weekly bounce that could potentially bring us actually back to around even $500. Whether we have a setup for that, I'm not really sure. So if I go to the 1 hour, so if I'm on the 1 hour, this actually looks very interesting. You have some higher lows right here. You have a breakout right here. I would definitely wait for a pullback. I think a pullback will be a big buy opportunity. So if you can get a pullback like this, if you can get something like this, and then you get a bounce, all right, I'm willing to step in with a stop loss just right below either these lows right here or below $323. So I think XMR is due for a nice bounce to around $500. Yeah, I like this. This looks really interesting. But on the bigger, higher time frame, though, it's now in a clear downtrend. So every move to the upside, you're basically looking at a bear rally. And also, 420 is actually a major resistance, before we get to $500. All right, that could potentially give you. Does this look like a head and shoulders pattern, guys? If you want to look at it that way, this could be the right shoulder, left shoulder, and this could be the neck right here. You tell me, does that look like a head and shoulders? But yeah, anyways, what else? Take a look at Esther. This one right here. Do we have something with data? Let's come right here. This one right here is in a big weekly downtrend. Yeah, look at this. All right, so the first test is breaking above 81 cents. This is the weekly, though. Let's go to the lower time. So on the lower time, let me get rid of all of this right here. There we go. go. So on the lower time, at least the 4 hour, this is a nice breakout. Here we go, nice breakout. I wouldn't do anything though. I would wait for a pullback. I don't know if we get a pullback where, if you don't get a pullback where a price comes down like this, and then it goes up like that. If you don't get that type of a pullback and we go sideways, any breakout above $76, I would definitely be a buyer. 76 cents, not dollars. I would definitely be a buyer with a stop loss below 69, 68. All right, but this looks really good. So you can clearly see this was a bullish divergency. If you look at RSI's, MACD probably. All right, bullish divergency while this thing was dumping. So this is a clear breakout right here. All right, first target is going to be, so you're looking at 81 cents basically. If you can break above 81 cents, then you're looking at, potentially moving back to around $1.28 to $1.40. I think this is a major target. The 1 hour is already in an uptrend, so I like it. All right, the 4 hour already in an uptrend. I like it as well, but I would like to see a pullback just because, I don't like to jump into something that looks like this. If I can get a pullback, I think of this pullback right here. If I can get something like this, I think that makes it a lot easier, in terms of where you put your stop loss and, what you do after. So, yeah, it looks really good. If I'm looking at some of these indicators, you can see RSI in a bull market territory. MACD bull market territory. This is a 4 hour though. On the daily, even the daily looks really good. So I would like some sort of a pullback on this RSI, even on the daily right here, guys. I do like what I'm seeing. This looks really good. If we can break above 81 cents, I think there's a very good chance of, pushing all the way up into this range right here. I guess the only question would be, the weakness of the overall cryptocurrency market. Will that have an impact in the price, or could this be one of those tokens that just avoids, what is going on in the overall market, and, it goes on this crazy uptrend. All right, and of course, if you can get above 140, you're looking at potentially going back to around 227. So this looks really good. I absolutely like it. Look, on the daily, you can buy this breakout. I think on the daily, there's a very good chance you can, you can have your entry right here. I guess the only problem I have is, if you jump in right here, where do you put your stop loss? Do you put your stop loss below 56 cents? That's a very wide stop loss. I think you're looking at probably losing anywhere between 20 to 30% of your capital. I'm not a fan of that. Yeah, look, this is almost like a 30% loss. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. A pullback would be great. If you can get a pullback to around 65 cents, a pullback to 65 cents, and you need a bounce first. And then if you can get a bounce, I think that would be a great entry. But I like what I see. Jasmine, I just looked at Jasmine. What do you want me to say in terms of Jasmine? Jasmine's in a long-term downtrend. Looking at weekly looks really bad. Looking at monthly looks really bad. On the daily, this is a little bounce, just like any of these other projects. Look, if you think the daily is about to do something, you can jump in right here. Just make sure you put your stop loss just right below 0.0526. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, taking on about basically a 15% loss. I think that is way too much, and it's probably not worth it. If I go to the 1 hour though, the 1 hour looks interesting though. So if I'm looking at this 1 hour right here, excuse me. If I'm looking at this 1 hour, you have a nice breakout. See how we broke above the 200 moving average. Let me get rid of that. Nice break. Even just kind of forgetting about this moving average, broken out of this crazy downtrend. This is a I'm gonna say, look, I view this as a retest of the breakout. So I like the 1 hour. Yeah, definitely looks very good on the 1 hour. So if I was looking at Jasmine, I think there's an opportunity right here, with a stop loss just right below. It's right below these lows right here. Let's see. Yeah, you're looking at a 15% loss. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't like anything greater than a 10% loss. And if you're jumping in right here, your first target could be. Remember, these are short-term targets. I'm looking at 007. So this is like a 25% move. Yeah, I don't like the risk. I don't want to look, you could put your stop loss below 00576. The only reason I don't like it is because I think this is very, very tight. Like if you put a stop loss right here where the risk is 5%, like this is a really, really good trade. But this is more likely to get stopped out. And especially, with this much volatility, I don't know how I feel about that. Personally, I wouldn't trade it because, the overall trend is down. So I don't want to bet on a relief rally. That is like trying to trade this move right here. Like it's not worth it. Could you make some profits? Yes. Is it worth it? Probably not. So I wouldn't do it. The overall trend is not looking good. And I think, you're looking at Jasmine potentially coming all the way back here, guys, to the absolute lows of his bear market. So you have to be careful. Yes, definitely. The lower time definitely looks really good. I'm liking the 4 hour. I'm liking the 1 hour. But those are all short term. I'm more interested in the weekly because I want to capture moves like this. Like I want to be in a position for a couple months. And I don't see a setup for that. For some of you guys who are joining for the first time, guys, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, guys. Yeah, long-term holder, you gotta be patient. Look, in my opinion, no one should be dollar cost averaging into altcoins. The setup is not there. Long-term bullish setups are just not there, guys. This is nothing but a trap, and a very big one. If you're not careful, you're gonna get hurt. Like if you are not careful, you are going to get hurt. Okay, look at this one right here, Monad. Oh, this is a really big breakout though. So this one looks interesting now. Notice how the last couple of days has been going sideways. If we can break above 2 cents, right? If we can break above 2 cents today, and we need to get that done by today because we've already broken above it. So we need to close above the resistance. That could reverse this entire crash right here. And now you have something that's more likely to trend up. Remember, the trend is your best friend, guys. So this is a breakout. This is a retest of the breakout. This is our first high. So if we do get the next pullback, that will probably becomes a higher low. And moving forward, you're more likely to see something that looks like this. So if I'm looking at Monad on the daily, to me, this is something that I would actually like to be involved in. So if I can put a trend line right here. All right, this is a very clean breakout. If you jump in right here, look, I think jumping in right here is, look, it's not something that I like to do. I like to jump in on a pullback. I don't want to buy after a move like this. But if I'm looking at this, to me, this looks really, really interesting, especially if you get a daily close above, this resistance. So today, if we can close above that resistance, I think this is something that goes a little higher. All right. If I'm on the lower time, so I'll give you an example. If you go on the 4 hour, especially, or the 4 hour looks, chat, actually, I would definitely trade this. The 4 hour looks really, really good, man. Look at the 4 hour, a clean breakout. I think this is an indication that we're going to close above the resistance today. This is a higher low. And then you have all of this right here. The next pullback is major. Chat, the next pullback is a buy opportunity on the lower time. So if you get a pullback, the next one, you should be jumping into a position. Either we pull back to retest the prior resistance that becomes a support, all right, or we come a little lower, and then we end up with something like this. If I want to trade something, I'm definitely looking at this one right here. This looks really good. I bet price has already broken above, low. Yeah, look at the EMAs on the lower time, already above it. So any pullbacks, these moving averages are more likely to act as a support. And until the trend is broken, you want to continue to buy the dip. This is the only project right now I would feel confident accumulating. But once we get a pullback, I need to see a pullback. Like, I really, really need to see a pullback. Because if you don't get a pullback that gives you a higher low, then you end up with something that, just gives you a big pump. Like, you get a big pump, and then, you retrace the entire move all the way back here. I can show you guys, tons of examples of that, where a project goes up, but it fails to establish, an actual trend, and then you get a massive pullback. So here's an example, guys. This is ICP. When ICP broke out, like, I really thought this was the beginning of something. But as you can clearly see, all right, you had this structure break right here. You had this pullback, and then we ended up with this move. So if I was looking at ICP right here, I would have probably waited for a pullback. Now, price continued higher. And then when we did get a pullback, we ended up retracing the entire move. This is because, the long-term structure to keep price going up on a more consistent, basis was never established. Like, the platform to allow price to continue appreciate was never really, really established. And this is why you end up with with a retracement like this. So if I'm looking at Monad, I need to see what the next pullback is going to do. Because if the next pullback puts in a higher low, that indicates that you have a token that is more likely to continue its uptrend. But if we just continue running, you're more likely to retrace the entire move. And to me, I am perfectly fine missing out. And I'm happy to be on the sideline, when something like that is taking place. What about ICP? Are you? Absolutely not. I wouldn't buy ICP even if somebody pays me, guys. There is nothing. All right, there's nothing right here when it comes to ICP. I mean, look at the chart. All right, look at the chart right here. If I'm looking at ICP on the weekly, I don't want to buy something that looks like this. All right, absolutely not, guys. Like, this is one of the worst performer in this bull market. Look at the monthly. All right, like, what is here to buy? Could it turn around? Probably. But, prove to us, right? Prove to us that you can actually turn around. If you look at the MACDs, the RSIs, yeah, this thing looks really, really bad. Don't get excited with relief rallies. 100%. And this is what I'm trying to push forward. You got to be careful, guys. These relief rallies are extremely, extremely dangerous. All right. These relief rallies are extremely, extremely dangerous. And the example I continue to use, think of Bitcoin going from $80,000 to $97,000. How many of you guys were bullish? Maybe not you specifically, but, think in general, guys. How many people were screaming BTC is back when we went from $80,000 to $97,000? That is the perfect example. All right. There is going to be tons and tons of relief rallies. And it is your responsibility to keep yourself in check. It is your responsibility to stay calm. It is your responsibility to not make a mistake that you are massively going to regret for, not just in 2026, but going into the next bull market. Because putting capital in the market right now, do you know what that capital can do if you're a little bit more patient? If the capital you have right now, guys, can buy you, let's say 100,000 XRP tokens, towards the end of the bear market, that same capital could potentially get you 500,000 XRP tokens. That is the difference. Do you want to grab the 1,000 XRP tokens right now with the same purchase in dollars that you can, use to buy 500,000 of them? It all comes down to, are you willing to be patient? Are you willing to stay calm during green days in a bear market? Because these relief rallies. All right, let's talk about something really quickly in the miners. Look, Wolf needs to close above $17 today. Wolf needs to close above $17 today. If we don't close above $17, in my opinion, this is the top of Wolf's bull market, and you're looking at the beginning of a long-term downtrend. All right, it is early on. All right, so far the structure is bullish. The only reason I'll become bearish on Wolf is if we fail to close above $17 today, guys. Like, that to me is a massive confirmation. Look, yesterday we tried to get above, throughout this week, we've tried to get above 17. It's just not working. Today we try to get above 17. We actually, what's the date? Today's the 13th, right? Today we actually got to around $17.57. But guys, look, we're pushing into we're pushing into the last hour of the trading session. But look at what's taking place. Wolf is pulling back. All right, we are look, instead of going up and closing above 17, it is literally putting back. So there is something here. All right, this is something that you need to analyze. All right, this is not looking good for the bulls. And I'm telling you right now, guys, if we close today's weekly candle below $17, I think top is in. And I think you're looking at, our first target, of course, you're looking at $11.75. To me, that's my first target. I would definitely buy some puts. And, stop loss just right above maybe like $18. Probably put a stop loss around 18. Or you can just short it, instead of buying puts. So let's say we close here. Stop loss, 10% losses. Profits. This is a 27%. Yeah, this is a really good trade. I don't think we stop at it. I think we're going way, way lower. If we don't get above $17, I think we're going to lose. All right. It's early for me to make these predictions, but I think we lose this range. And oh my God, you're looking at $4. I don't even want to talk about $2, guys. I don't want to get there because I think that's exactly where we're heading. I'm holding 350,000 and waiting, like you said. Yeah, you got to be patient. Got to be patient, guys. Chad, give me a second. I'll be back. Uh, once again, hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the like. All my focus is always, just looking at the long term because, look, day trading the cryptocurrency market is honestly one of the it's the number one way to lose money in the market. You gotta be careful. We talked about Zcash. We talked about XLM. We've talked about. Have I talked about Sui? No. I'm looking at Sui right now. Look, on the daily, nothing has changed. Absolutely nothing has changed, guys. Even if, look, the worst thing about these projects is that, like, they need to go up so much to break the downtrend, unless we get, a new week, a daily or weekly lower high. So if I'm looking at Sui, let's say price goes up and comes back, maybe we need to just do this and then we start a new uptrend. But if I'm looking at the weekly, and this is why it doesn't make any sense when somebody say this is a buy opportunity. If I'm looking at Sui, like, as of right now, you need to break above $2, all right, just to have any chance of making an argument that this is a bullish, that this is a bullish weekly. All right. Not only that, chat, like, remember, this blue line is going to have to get above this green line, and this is going to take time, because the only way you're in a bull market is your short-term moving average are above your long-term moving average. And I know what some of you guys may be thinking, well, those are moving averages, those are laggers. Yeah, they're laggers, but they're not behind too much. Like, they are just right there. They're not, it's not like the price is, 5 months away from your moving average when the market is bullish. No, it's like, maybe a couple of weeks behind or maybe a couple of days behind. Wolf also has a monthly bearish divergence, not looking promise. Oh, did I miss that? Did I talk about that? Let me see. So Wolf right here on the monthly. Yeah, look, that is, if this RSI tops, that is not good. I think the weekly is the one that's more clear. And also, when you look at the weekly MACD, just in terms of momentum, like, this is still looking pretty bad. And this is why I'm like, you got to be careful with this one. Also, when you go to the monthly looks very strong, though, in terms of the momentum. But, yeah, look, we need to close above 17, man. Like, $17 is very, very important. We got about an hour. Can we get above $17 in an hour? Yeah, let's see how that plays out. CLSK, these ones are already done. Look at the crash. Yeah, these ones are already done. Mara, way done. Long time ago. Iron, I have some puts already. I think Iron is in a long-term pullback, long-term downtrend. When you go to its monthly just momentum, can clearly see, the momentum has been decreasing. We are seeing lower highs in the momentum. You look at RSI. RSI has been pulling back. You go to the weekly. This is a weekly lower high. This is a weekly lower high right here. Once you lose $33, if you were still waiting for a confirmation, like, that should be the confirmation. I'm on the daily. The other thing that I'm also waiting for is for the price to lose its 200 moving average. If I'm looking at Iron on the daily, guys, to me, this looks like a daily lower high around $46. Like, we don't go above 46 and we continue this pullback. If I go to the 4 hour, already lost the 200 EMA. So let's see how this all plays out. Like, I don't see price breaking above the 21 moving average on the 4 hour. That would be around $45. So this is also another reason for me to be bearish on Iron. So the lower time is basically already bearish, already in a downtrend. And I think it's only a matter of time. Once you lose $33, you are looking at a 50% haircut. Like literally, guys, I'm looking at this range right here. So yeah, look, I got some puts. So far, I'm probably down a little bit. I'm probably up a little bit. I think I grabbed those puts around maybe in the higher $40 range. This is all about patience, man. I'm looking at this. Look, we just had a dev cross right here on the daily. These golden cross dev crosses, they might not mean anything to you, but I look at them, from the perspective of, your lower time moving averages are below your higher time moving average. I look at it from that lens and I go, all right, I don't like the look of that. And the wider the gap, the bigger the momentum. And of course, structure is number one. The fact that we had this massive rally ended up topping around $63 to me, in terms of long-term structures being broken, that is everything basically. Because when you look at the performance on the weekly and on the monthly, guys, every single pullback has been an opportunity. Every single high has been a higher high. Now, all right, if you want to see a lower high, you got to go all the way back to 2024. But since 2025, guys, at least mid-2025, not one high has been a lower high. They have all been higher highs. So the fact that we have a lower high right here after going up, you go from $6 all the way up to 70. Like, this is a clear 10x. After doing a 10x, you decide to do a lower high. That to me was a massive bearish confirmation. So I think we go lower. It's all about stay patient. Allow enough time to pass by, and then we'll take a look at these charts. Can you look at BTC NASDAQ? I talked about BTC. Is there a BTCS? Yeah, I don't know what this is. Yeah, this is not looking good. This is not looking good. It's been crashing though since like 8. What is this? Is this like the valuation of BTC with the NASDAQ? Is this what it is? Yeah, it's not looking good. It's got some big support around the $1.24. Let's see the reaction there. And then we'll make a decision on, does he bounce? Does he continue down? What I like to do, guys, is I focus on the structure. To me, even if price is coming towards a support, if the structure is bearish, I'm just bearish on the market. And even if you get a bounce, my interpretation is never bullish. So if I'm looking at Bitcoin right here, all right, if Bitcoin comes towards $49,000, I don't think it's bullish because we're retesting 49,000. I look at it as, maybe we get a bounce right here, but ultimately, price should continue down until, the downtrend is over. And the only way the downtrend comes over, then, we need to see this. This is the only way the downtrend comes to an end. We got to be able to reverse price to the upside. Yeah, that chart looks bearish. Yeah, this looks really bad. The time to get in was... Oh, what did I do? The time to get in was... a long time ago. But now this looks bad. Yep. I absolutely don't like it. This is like, you know what's crazy? Looking at these charts reminds me of Iran. So you get a top right here. You get a weekly lower high. And then you have the support right here around $3.84. I mean, look how identical this is to Iran. If you go back to Iran, you basically have exactly the same setup. You have the top right here. You have a weekly lower high. I mean, how crazy this, guys. Then you have the support. Once this is broken, you basically end up with, oh my gosh, man. Don't tell me I gotta do what I. You basically end up with this. How crazy is that, chat? This is Iran all over again. So the same way, if you were analyzing this back in October of 2025, the same way you would have had to be patient. It's exactly the same thing with Iran. All right, chat. Appreciate you guys. Or maybe I'll do a few. Nah, actually, yeah, let me get out of here. Yeah, I don't know. What else? What else do you guys want me to analyze? Yo, how long have we streamed? An hour 46. Yeah, just crazy. I think this is my longest. Let me do a few more. I think I got about 10 more minutes for you guys. Let me do a few more and then we'll be done. Just give me 1 second, yo. Let me grab some water. All right, let's see. Yeah, look, Wolf, this is not looking good. We got about 40 minutes left until the market close. Not only are we pulling back, we're about to lose $16. We need to get above 17, and this thing is pulling back. If you go down to Oh man. Anyways, what was I saying? We talked about Solana. I mean, look, I spent so much time talking about Solana. Look, like this is a very big move, but in a bear market, I don't want to trade any of these moves, right? This is a 10% move, but the thing is like, is the risk worth it? I don't think so. All right, I don't think any of this is worth trying to capture. This is a nice move from 76. The question is like, what is your entry? What is your exit? It makes sense to stay on the sideline and wait for a completion of this entire crash, and then at some point when the base is building for the next bull market, you build a position and you hold the position for, I don't know, 6, 12 months. All right, easily a 10x, potentially a 20x. I think that's the way to play the cryptocurrency market, guys. Like day trading it, short term swing trading it. I don't think is the right way to do this. If any of you guys is interested in joining my Discord, I'm gonna put the link in the chat. If you want to join, feel free to join us. It's about $200 for 6 months, 350 for the entire year. So you basically have 12 months. And not only are we looking at crypto, we are also trading the stock market. Appreciate you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the stream, and I will see you tomorrow. Yeah, I don't think I'll live stream tomorrow, guys. I will definitely live stream Sunday. All right, guys. Appreciate you guys. Take care. Bye.